Blog Talk Radio.
Ken Anderson, welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report.
Good morning, gentlemen.
We are pleased to welcome our guest for the first time here in this very program, Matt Hardy. Kevin, thanks for joining the Pro Wrestling Report. It is the Iron Sheik. Sheik, good evening.
Welcome, Rhino.
Hey, well, thanks for having me, guys.
Celebrating 12 years on the air and voted 2009 Broadcast Show of the Year. This is the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN and ESPNMilwaukee.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the live post show for TNA Genesis from the Pro Wrestling Report, a noteworthy pay-per-view for sure, as we have a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion on top of many other championships changing hands. Damian Nelson here with you live, along with David Hero. And David, TNA Genesis proved to be a very strong start to TNA's 2011.
Awesome. Just, you know what? It started off kind of slow. Wasn't too sure how the whole thing was going to pan out, but boy, they ended strong, didn't they?
It absolutely did. As we said, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, we do indeed have a brand new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. As you know, going into Genesis tonight, there was no championship match announced or advertised, but it was a number one contenders match between Mr. Anderson and Matt Morgan. One of those men would get a chance at the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Well, Eric Bischoff comes down and attempts to take advantage of a vulnerable Anderson and says that that match will happen right now. Jeff Hardy comes down to the ring, not even in his ring gear, gets into what he thought would be a simple situation. And, David, we saw Mick Foley, RVD, a new superstar who debuted tonight in TNA Wrestling, Matt Hardy, also get involved in this matchup. But at the end of the night, it would be Mr. Anderson, the asshole himself, as the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And I got to tell you, it was a well-done ending to that pay-per-view.
Yeah, you know, they threw a whole lot of stuff at you in the end. I mean, when the match started, I'm like, wow, Ken and Matt are going to go 40 minutes. I'm thinking, geez, it's going to be one hell of a long match. And then all of a sudden there's like 15 minutes left. I'm like, well, and then Bischoff comes up. I'm like, makes perfect sense. You know, you have the vulnerable challenger, the way you would say how the Miz is the vulnerable champion. And, yeah, I mean, you know, Ken took, 2 or 3 carbon footprints, a couple twists of fate, you know, a swanton, kicks out of all of it, a lot of distractions around the ring. So then that way it establishes Foley now being involved as a player again. Matt Morgan, got his stuff in. What they did is they quickly made a whole lot of baby faces a little more relevant by all having a hand in the main event title match.
Yeah, absolutely, and they did so very well. I would agree with you. As you said, it started off slow. However, this was a night of many notes. Eric Bischoff saying that all the titles would be coming over to the portal, and obviously that became more interesting as they lose the World Championship but gain other championships, including the X Division and TV Championship, in light of an injury that took AJ Styles out of that matchup, being replaced by Abyss, who went one-on-one with Doug Williams and took that TV title, and those titles going over to Immortal. Also, as we talked about a moment ago, Matt Hardy making his debut tonight with TNA Wrestling. Matt Hardy, the mystery opponent for RVD, defeating RVD in his debut matchup in TNA Wrestling. We're going to be taking your phone calls, ladies and gentlemen. The number you can join us at is 347-996-5278. 347-996-5278. We've also got the chat room up here on Blog Talk Radio, and we're going to be reading some of your tweets. Our Twitter username is PWR Show. I want to remind all of you, before you do anything else, make sure you favorite this show right here on Blog Talk Radio. We're live on ESPN Radio each and every week. This week it's going to be Tuesday night at 10 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, and never miss an episode of the Pro Wrestling Report. But David Hero, the titles changing hands, Matt Hardy debuting, a lot going on tonight at TNA Genesis.
You know, I guess at the end of the day, when you look at everything, it just shows you that Jeff Hardy is going to be spending some time away. with his plea bargain that he's that's now coming up with, and it also shows you the confidence that Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan now have in Ken Anderson to now be the guy that's going to carry the ball for TNA, and who knows how long it's going to be, but obviously they feel he is the guy that can lead them, take them, for the next 6 months or a year with TNA as their main headliner.
What was also interesting is there was some ridicule, including from us, about not having a championship match on this pay-per-view, not advertising their champion on this pay-per-view. I will say this. The build to the Anderson-Morgan match has been one of the best builds they've done in a very long time. You look at some of the video promos, you look at the in-ring interview from Impact this past Thursday night, you look at what they did. They did a lot to put this match into another category, and it was presented as such. While it started off slow, it was a good match nonetheless, but at the end of the day, all of that was done to get where we are now, which is having Mr. Anderson as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
Absolutely. I'm the first to admit, as much of a fan of Ken as I am, thinking, wow, that's the main event for their big Genesis pay-per-view. It's kind of iffy. And then watching the match, just how slowly paced that match was, it wasn't your typical Ken Anderson match. Now we know why, because of the way they built up that main event going into bringing Jeff Hardy down. And when Jeff came down with his, who knows if that's his last cigarette, quote unquote, and then showing up in his street clothes, just all kind of interesting how how that all played out together. But what's going to be interesting is Matt Hardy. Mm-hmm. What role is he going to take Jeff's spot, in Immortal for right now? It should be interesting to see what's going to happen on this week's worth of TV tapings for the next few weeks.
And what we've heard as of late regarding this Jeff Hardy legal situation is he will serve no jail time. The charge for drug trafficking, which was the most substantial of the charges, has been dropped as part of the plea bargain. So it appears as if there may not be any need for Jeff to take time off, but interesting dynamics, and no matter what, David Hero, happens, the intrigue has been built, because for the people that didn't buy the pay-per-view, they're going to see Matt Hardy debut. They're going to see that Mr. Anderson's the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Neither things that I don't think they would have thought were possible going into the pay-per-view. Now, minus the fact that Dixie Carter, 3 hours before the pay-per-view, said on Twitter, there's a new face here in TNA. I hope he chooses the right side. I mean, she may as well have said Matt Hardy is here.
Well, I don't think there's any secret that Matt was going to show up. I mean, his 90 days were up. He tweeted about making a change over the next couple days. He shows he's changing his hairstyle on his Twitter account. Mm-hmm. I mean, Matt did a great job of keeping himself relevant through the different social media networks to make tonight's appearance mean something more than just a guy that's been off TV for 90 days.
Exactly, and he kept himself very relevant, including an interview that we did with him on the Pro Wrestling Report just after his WWE release. That interview available right now at pwrshow.com, where we asked Matt Hardy if TNA was in his future, and he certainly did not say no. He didn't say yes, but he leaned a lot more towards stay tuned to find out. He knew at that time, it seemed, that TNA was in his future, and tonight was the night where he would debut. This is the Pro Wrestling Report. We are live on Blog Talk Radio tonight, and we're going to be taking your phone calls. The number is 347-996-5278, 347-996-5278. We're going to get to those calls in just a minute. But, David Hero, let's go over some of the other things that happened on the card tonight from TNA Genesis. Kazarian versus Jay Lethal for the X Division Championship. Kazarian winning that matchup and the X Division title. A good way to start the pay-per-view. However, I thought the win came off a little flat.
I would have to agree with you. It just, once again, it seems like the Orlando fans just aren't into it. They're there because they want to be part of the show. It's a free pay-per-view for them. They get to hang out, cheer, boo, whatever. But, it's hard to get something going when the crowd's not hot. And, Kaz is extremely talented. So is Jay Lethal. Two guys that if I wanted to pick in TNA to open up the show for me, it would be the two of them. But, yeah, it just seemed to be missing something. And I guess what it misses is that maybe Ric Flair should come down to the ring with his guys and be their manager, and just a little bit of extra spark, a little extra heat, a little extra fire outside the ring. I just think it means that much more than let these guys go out there by themselves. I mean, if Ric Flair is in charge of Fortune, then he should be like Bobby Heenan did with the Heenan family and come down to the ring with each one of his charges.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Well, it continued from there in what was a surprisingly long and surprisingly well-done match where we saw an interference as well. There would be several of those tonight. Mickie James versus Madison Rayne. Madison Rayne, the winner of the 2010 Pro Wrestling Report Honors Female of the Year award, retains the Knockouts Championship against Mickie James in what I thought was a decent yet a little slower-paced match than I expected it to be. As I said, Tara interfering, and Madison playing possum, taking advantage of that opportunity, getting the win via pinfall with a loaded fist to the face of Mickie James.
I don't think there is a better knockout or diva going right now than Madison Rayne.
Wow, that's a huge statement.
I mean, she gets it. She believes in her character as to who she is. I think she's one of the top talkers of all the divas and knockouts, and she can work. I mean, she's believable. I mean, the crowd chants that she can't wrestle. She can. She's gone toe-to-toe with everyone out there, and considering where she started, being a third wheel for the beautiful people,
right,
to where she is today, I think she's done an amazing job going to that next level. But, yeah, for me right now, the MVP of the knockouts is Madison Rayne because of all the real true heat that she gets, and she can go in the ring.
And we talked about the 2010 Pro Wrestling Report Honors. For those of you listening to us potentially for the first time here on Blog Talk Radio, our website, pwrshow.com, is where you can watch that award show on demand and see who all the winners were, including the opportunity to also see that interview with Matt Hardy that we recently did on our ESPN radio show. Continuing along, David Hero, Motor City Machine Guns losing the TNA Tag Team Championships to Beer Money. Beer Money becoming the four-time TNA World Tag Team Champions. Could be the best match of the night. Delivered great action as expected. I think they were smart as well. They slowed it up a little at first. It wasn't a problem because then we started getting into those huge near-fall situations, believable near-fall situations. But a miscue by the Motor City Machine Guns allows Rude to get the pin on Chris Sabin. We've got new champions, and I hope to God we don't see any dissension between Sabin and Shelley.
You know, I don't think so. They would be crazy to break up the Machine Guns. I thought it was a well-done finish to keep the Machine Guns strong. I would hate for them to lose via Beer Money's finisher because the match was, you know, it was going back and forth quite a bit. It was done right. Was it great? I don't know. Handful of tights, typical heel roll-up. But you know what, sometimes those baby faces, you know, they'll get things crossed up and mixed up. But overall, it was solid, you know, and what better way to beat them than by them beating themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how John Morrison beat himself when The Miz, with The Miz on last Raw.
You're fishing, but I'm not biting your bait. That's twice now.
I know I bite the bait because I've already got a whole bunch of other fish in the back of the boat.
Uh-huh,
You know,
right.
I mean, it's true. I mean, the Machine Guns beat themselves. And, you know, that it just keeps them strong. I mean, I'm expecting a Beer Money Machine Gun feud to go on for the next 2 months. I would expect it to possibly go through lockdown when it's in a cage match between both teams.
We'll see what happens with that. A good matchup, and things get a little more unique in the next matchup, which was Bully Ray versus Devon. Devon surprisingly dominating in the first part of that matchup, a good portion of that matchup, actually. They go out into the crowd, which was probably expected. Bubba takes control at that point, goes back and forth. Devon brings a chain into the ring, actually the chain that Bubba, I believe, was wearing around his neck at some point, and the match is thrown out as a disqualification against Devon. Bully Ray winning.
I tell you, they wasted time on that. They did. I mean...
Who cares
amazing.
about these two anymore? In this particular situation, who cares about these two?
When was the last time a tag team split up that you cared about the feud between the two of them? It's never happened. I mean, maybe when the Mega Powers exploded, Hogan versus Savage, but I mean, even when it was, you know, Michaels versus Jannetty, nobody cared. I mean, when it was, you know, Devon and Bubba, nobody cares. Martel and Santana, nobody cares. David Hart Smith and Tyson Kidd, nobody cares because it's not believable. Even Hall and Nash, It's not believable. Road Dogg and Billy, not believable. I don't know why they keep doing it. I can tell you why they are doing it, because Bubba Ray is so good at politicking in the back to keep himself and Devon on TV. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that match they could have saved that for Impact. It didn't have to be on a pay-per-view. That match did not sell any more tickets.
Any more buys, you mean?
Well, right.
Are these two just taking up unnecessary space in TNA right now? Bubba and Devon.
I mean, right now they are. I mean, it's just uneventful. I mean, if you looked on Twitter, nobody cared about it. No one said, "Oh, I can't wait for this." Everyone was like, "Sigh, can't believe it's going to be on. Don't want to see this. Don't want to watch this. Don't want to see this." Come on, Dixie, you're on Twitter. You read all that stuff.
Right.
See what if she truly wants to give the fans what they want, give the fans what they want. It's not Bubba Ray and Devon.
Exactly, and I would make the bold statement they're just taking up unnecessary space right now.
Put it
in
this
TNA.
way, and write this down. They could have put the Pope and somebody else in that spot.
Well, Abyss, up until AJ's injury, which is legit, by the way, Abyss wasn't even on the pay-per-view. So they certainly had a great deal of opportunity.
They have talented guys that were sitting in the back that had nothing to do tonight, and their TV time, their pay-per-view time, their paycheck was taken up by Bubba Ray and Devon. And I don't dislike Bubba Ray and Devon. I don't know them to like them or not like them, but I just think there's a certain time when you just have to move aside and let someone else take that spot. I mean, Bubba Ray and Devon, back when they broke in as tag teams, they ridiculed all of the teams that would not move aside for them. Well, now they're doing the exact same thing. And they've both made a lot of money. They got their wrestling school. Go do that. You don't have to be on a pay-per-view right now.
In the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio, Bobby Boucher saying they should have had Pope versus Joe, and they certainly have been building towards that matchup for a little while now. D Saint saying, username D Saint saying, Devon can still work, Bubba needs to go. Super Chundy saying Team 3D, more like Team Washed Up. And Lighty KD, Bubba and Devon need to be the Undertaker of the tag division, being an attraction only. So, let's continue talking about TNA Genesis, which was live tonight on pay-per-view, where we saw Matt Hardy debut. We saw Ken Anderson become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and we saw Abyss become the new TV champion as he replaced AJ Styles, taking on Douglas Williams. This match was nothing special, but continued the story of Immortal taking all the gold over the course of the evening.
For me, I was happy for Abyss, a guy that has busted his butt. He's done everything that TNA has asked him to do, and he came out as a new TV. He's on TV every week. He's gone. He's on all the big hardcore matches. He's put over Rob Van Dam after the 3 Million Stitches match, the Staples match. He may not need that title right now, and the fans may not like the idea, but I think it was TNA's way of saying, hey, you know what? He's been like our go-to guy. Whenever we needed him to fill in, he's done it. Let's reward him that way.
RVD versus a mystery opponent. Before the matchup, we see RVD saying all he wants is Hardy. All he wants is Hardy, referencing Jeff Hardy. Well, Bischoff says, you want Hardy, you got Hardy. At that point, it became painfully obvious as to who it would be, that being new to TNA Wrestling, Matt Hardy. In a matchup with RVD, Hardy's got a bit of a new look, which caused Tyler Rex to be a trending topic on Twitter tonight.
How funny is that, right?
Yeah, very funny. And the referee, Jackson James, a little bit of controversy there as he stopped a pinfall on Matt Hardy from RVD due to Hardy's hand being in the rope. Yet, Hardy gets the pinfall victory with RVD's leg clearly under the bottom rope.
I don't know if it was the best booked match. I understand why they did it that way, because they're eventually going to, expose the fact that Bischoff's kid is that referee and he's part of Immortal and Fortune and blah, 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 the whole thing. And, he's going to slowly, innocently screw job all the baby faces, and eventually get there. But I just think they could have done so much more. That was not your typical Matt Hardy, Rob Van Dam match. I thought it was pretty slow again. They didn't do all the stuff that both guys are known for. maybe because it's Matt's first real match since even since Blizzard Brawl, and that was a month ago. Maybe he's trying to get reacclimated back in the ring and whatnot, but I just think they could have done so much more with that match, and hopefully, like I said, this week's TV, they can make up for it.
One of the more entertaining moments of the night, actually a bit of a brutal moment as well, but several entertaining points in the next matchup, which was the MMA exhibition of Jeff Jarrett versus Kurt Angle. 3 rounds of action. Third round was the charm, I guess, as the match was stopped and thrown out due to some cheating by Jeff Jarrett. And we saw what was just a cardinal error by TNA Wrestling, as Kurt Angle was going to be bleeding, and we saw the build-up.
Let me just say this.
Bleeding.
If that guy in the production truck is not fired on the spot, there's something wrong with TNA Wrestling.
Can Samoa Joe go in and fire him?
Somebody should. When I'm watching that, I was like, there's no way. I can understand, you may catch a little glimpse of it, but you don't show the guy fumbling with the blade.
Right.
Come on.
And that was all he was doing. Meaning,
right there.
When they took the shot, that's what he was doing. And when they stayed on the shot, that's what he was doing. I mean, if you don't know anything about production, you're looking at all these monitors in this truck, and you know where you're going and what you're going to, and the cameramen, for God's sakes, should know what they should be shooting and what they shouldn't be shooting. That was a bit of an error, but a small part of the matchup, which saw Jeff Jarrett continue to be very entertaining and own Kurt Angle in that matchup, at least at the end of it, and then say that come this Thursday night on Impact, we're going to see a celebration as he retires his MMA boots undefeated, and it appears as if Karen Angle is going to be part of that.
Well, you know what? I mentioned it on the radio this past week. I wouldn't be surprised if Karen shows up, and she was mentioned, and now she'll be back on TV, at least for this week, and it's just going to further that storyline. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I was disappointed in the match with Jeff and Kurt, but for it being the gimmick match how it was, they really couldn't do a whole lot, and in that way it kind of kept both guys separated while they're still in the ring together. But all I can focus on is just that terrible botched blade job that was caught by production. It really, really did.
Yep.
I mean, I know what kind of guy Kurt Angle is. I know what kind of professional Jeff Jarrett is. When they see that, they're going to be livid pissed.
Absolutely. And they will know just as well as you just said that it ruined the whole situation. Now,
it did. It really did.
Kurt Angle did a couple of very noteworthy things, I think. One before the match, one in the pre-match promo, and then in the in-ring promo where he said pre-match, if you want to know how good a shape I am in physically, ask your wife.
Right.
Perfectly.
That was great. It was perfect.
When he gets in the ring, saying legitimately, if any of you want to get in this ring, I will break your neck. And rarely does somebody say something like that, and you're looking at him, and you know he can do it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely could do it.
It was good stuff. And I still continue to be thoroughly entertained by Jeff Jarrett and this whole MMA exhibition. And one thing about Jeff is since October, the Impact fans have been chanting, "You sold out. You sold out." He's maintained that heat. He's maintained that fan interest ever since October's Bound for Glory, and I would venture to say he's probably one of the most reacted to heels in the company right now. Jeff Hardy doesn't get the reaction he gets.
No, I mean, I hate to even say it, but Jeff Jarrett just might be the only true heel in TNA.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
Well, it was an entertaining exhibition, of course, ruined by that small error from the production team, which just doesn't do good for anybody, including the performers who gave their sweat and blood to be a part of that matchup. But overall, we talked about the main event, which saw Mr. Anderson become the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Overall, this was a strong pay-per-view, David Hero.
Really?
In my opinion, it was strong.
I mean,
I will say the first hour I thought was a little bland, wasn't moving, wasn't really delivering anything special. And then I looked at the clock and it was 8:07, and I didn't think that much time had elapsed. So that tells me I was actually enjoying it a little more than I thought I was.
For me, it was going slow, even through the match with Ken versus Matt, because knowing both guys, that's not their typical match. So something just seemed out of place. But it wasn't until the end when Jeff Hardy came down, and now it's a world title match, and everyone else gets involved, and there's a little bit of schmaz in there as well. Yeah, I mean, for me, the payoff came in the last, 7 minutes of the show.
Let's go to a phone caller. We've got a few more minutes left in the show here. The area code we're taking this call from is the 202 area code. And please, caller, announce your name and the location you're calling from. Caller from the 202, you're live.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Tremendous. What's your name, sir?
My name is Ronald. Ronald, coming from Washington, D.C., home of Batista.
Yes, thanks for calling.
Yeah, just calling and giving my comments on tonight's pay-per-view that I got to see. Of course, the Team 3D feud. I mean, come on, man, that was just. They could have really dealt without that. I don't care about Team 3D. TNA should have took the lesson from WWE when they first split up.
Right.
Them from the first time, and just saw how they wasn't rejuvenating no money, and how there wasn't no fans didn't care until they put them back together, and then they became once again white hot as a tag team.
Yeah.
But to have them feuding like this, like nobody didn't care, I didn't care about it. This feud really needs to. I really wasn't into the feud.
Well, let's move on, Ronald. What did you think of the TNA World Championship changing hands tonight?
I thought it was awesome. In words of the Miz, awesome.
Thank you.
It was great. I wasn't expecting that. That was a great coup. I wasn't expecting that to happen at night, especially because how the match was going between Matt Morgan and Ken and how everything was just going like how y'all was saying at first, it was going real slow. It wasn't moving as fast. And then when he caught it with the roll up and the pin, I was like, wow, okay, so what they're going to do now? Did I see Eric Bischoff coming out? Did I see it say now it's a world? And I thought it was going to be like a squash match, like when Edge came out and it did to John Cena.
Yep.
And I thought it was going to be a squash match, but it turned out to be a very competitive matchup, and you see everybody from Matt to RVD to Matt Morgan to, even Fortune try to get in, and I was just so happy to see that Anderson getting the title. So
glad to hear that, Ronald. We are out of time. We do appreciate you calling in and giving us your thoughts on TNA Genesis. David Hero, we got just a ton of tweets coming across our Twitter feed here. We're going to try to get to some of them first. Dave the Mark, user on Twitter, is saying TNA Genesis started off extremely strong with that tag team action, then went downhill really fast, but ended on a high note. User by the name of MJEch says that is why TNA is great. Something different and new, not paint-by-numbers BS. Always interesting. That's an interesting comment for sure. Real Keegan Q saying, actually, that was one we retweeted, so you guys can go ahead and discuss that one on our Twitter feed. And lots of discussion, David Hero, about tonight's very newsworthy TNA Genesis pay-per-view. The question that I will ask you, though, sir, in closing, pass or fail overall tonight?
The main event made it a pass pay-per-view for me. Otherwise, everything else I could have seen on Impact. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
As far as the other matches there. But the way the main event finished up, I was very pleased. It's been a great day for all of Green Bay. Packers and now their favorite son, Mr. Anderson, world champion. Hopefully he'll get a new belt because I really don't see that purple gimmick being his kind of deal. But, yeah, I loved it. I was very, very pleased.
I would give it a passing grade as well. We're going to talk about this pay-per-view in greater detail come this Tuesday night as we're live at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time on 540 ESPN, streaming live at pwrshow.com and right here on Blog Talk Radio. And Genesis really actually delivered something to talk about. And TNA posted some good ratings last week on Impact. You got to venture to say and imagine that coming up this Thursday, a lot of people are going to be tuning in to find out what happened and how we got to Ken Anderson being the new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I want to thank all of you for joining us here live on this post show for TNA Genesis. We're going to be live again on Tuesday night, 10 Central on 540 ESPN. David Hero, have a great night. We'll see you in a couple of days. And all of you out there in the listening universe, thank you for tuning in to the Pro Wrestling Report right here live on Blog Talk Radio.